Hello.
Hello, hello.
We can do a warm-up. The count of three. Everyone shout your favorite line from Billy Madison. 1, 2, 3.
O'Doyle rules.
we all got our favorites. My name's Robert Nassau. I'm an editor, an ace. This is Jeffrey Wolf, editor of Billy Madison.
30 years feels like a long time ago.
It was.
I watched that movie.
Jeff, in addition to this film, has an illustrious career. He's known for his 5 films with Ted Demme, including The Ref, Beautiful Girls, Life, which is my favorite. He edited Cecil B. Demented for John Waters, Holes, another millennial favorite, Dear John for Lassie Hallstrom, Bachelorette for Leslie Headland. As a assistant or apprentice editor, he started with Network and Mikey and Nikki, one of my favorite movies. He worked on The Wiz, the film version, a bunch of episodes of The Equalizer, for those of you old enough to remember it. He did his time at Troma, like any good editor in the 80s in New York City. He edited Heat, but not the Michael Mann one. It was Burt Reynolds one in 1986. Another favorite of mine, Tales from the Dark Side. And and lots of things in between. So let me start by just asking you, how'd you get this gig?
Yeah, well, Saturday Night, Adam was a big Saturday Night Live guy, and in '86 I did I was cutting the films for Saturday Night Live, and I did one called Mr. White. You know it as White. Go ahead.
This is one of my favorites too. White Like Me.
White Like Me, where
Eddie Murphy sketch.
Eddie Murphy dresses up as a white guy, which, by the way, if you've seen the piece, Jim Downey is in the first scene in the newspaper, selling him a newspaper, and Jim Downey is the host of the decathlon, so it's sort of a funny circle.
Of the famous line, "We're all stupider for having heard it." May God rest your soul. So he was an SNL writer, correct?
Yeah, and still, he worked at SNL for a really long time, and they had done Wayne's World, and they wanted Adam to, Adam pitched him this movie when he was working on Airheads, I guess, and I'd been working with Ted Demme. I did a movie called Beautiful Girls, actually first The Ref, and then Adam came to me, and the combination of Steve Kessler, who was a big commercial editor at the, director at the time. He had seen Penn and Teller Get Killed, which is more of a dark comedy, which was what I thought I was getting into. And then 8 days in, so I got the job because of that, probably because SNL and Ted Demme and Dennis Leary and all those people sort of came to bat for me. And so Kessler got fired 8 days into the shoot, and Tamara Davis came on because he was doing it more like a dark comedy, and the studio wanted this.
So it was too dark a comedy, death of the entire O'Doyle family aside. You're saying his vision was darker.
Well, in the version, it's funny, I was looking at some outtakes today. I found footage of a car going over the cliff and crashing and burning that never made it into the movie.
So the studio was okay with the entire O'Doyle family dying as long as we didn't see the car on fire.
Exactly.
Yes, that's how things work.
And, again, there's, burps and farts always were a big thing in movies, but the word horny, which was a repeated, there's 5 other scenes where the word horny is mentioned, or the word ass is mentioned. It's,
or ace.
Or ace, right? And yeah, as long as you mention Chris Farley, I don't know if Farley had a little bit of a drug problem before he came on this movie, and he was clean at that time, but he needed like 6 or 7 espressos before doing any shot, and he would like hold his breath for really long periods of time so that his face would get that red.
You told me that the year before you had been offered Dumb and Dumber and had turned it down.
This is true, and my children would never forgive
And
me for that.
This is what inspired. So when this one came along, you said, "What? This is really dumb. I should do it."
Yeah, I couldn't believe how dumb it was. I mean, to be honest. But that being said, I remember in those days that we still went to dailies. We were in Toronto, and every night we'd do dailies, and all the grown-ups, the department heads, would stand in the back, and my son Zach, who was 12 or 13 at the time, would sit with Adam in the front, and they would just be laughing their heads off the entire time. So I figured something was going on. I don't know what.
Yeah. So about when, so you get the job, you fly to Toronto where it was filmed, and when those dailies started coming in, well, first you had a period when your first director's fired, the second director comes in. Did you? What were your thoughts when you started seeing Sandler's performance and what was happening?
Well, first of all, I was never a Steenbeck editor. I was a moviola editor, and when we went to Toronto, Ted and I had bought a Lightworks together, and we brought the Lightworks to Toronto, and I had John Gilbert, who was my assistant, and then became like an associate editor type or editor type.
For the non-nerds here, Lightworks was an early nonlinear computer editing system.
But I had them set it up so its commands were more like a moviola setup than a typical Lightworks setup. So I was able to kind of make that transition, and I liked it. But your question was when I saw the dailies.
Yeah,
I thought it was
Sandler's performance.
The P scene was one of the first things they shot, and I think that was one of the scenes that the studio thought was a little too dark, but I think it's hilarious actually.
I think that scene actually is very moving. I think it's like one of the more moving scenes in the film.
And I forgot about the tour guide who says if peeing your pants is good, I'm Miles Davis.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. I mean, I think Sandler.
So I was surprised when Steve got fired. It was sort of, they were shooting what I expected to shoot, and but Adam had a lot of control over how the movie was going to be, and that it didn't work out. So
yeah,
Steve and I are still really good friends, so it's really nice.
Well, I mean that. It's hard for us to, now we know Adam Sandler so well, he's an institution at this point. When I look at that performance, it's like he's doing, like the recipes, like 4 parts Jerry Lewis and 1 part Linda Blair from The Exorcist. So I'm just sort of, I could see the studio just kind of being like, what the hell is this? But it seems like Sandler was totally in control, like in terms of he knew what he wanted, or he just had an idea of what he thought was funny. He had his own barometer.
Yeah, and I think like Norm Macdonald, who I personally think is one of the funniest people I listen to. Somehow it comes up on my Instagram feed all the time because I listen to so many bits of his. But he had been doing the weekend update on Saturday Night Live. My favorite joke was, "Yippee, Jerry Rubin died." But
yeah, the kids love that joke.
But yes, Norm Macdonald, and he, took him some time. There were a bunch of other scenes with him. Like there's a scene with him at one of the graduation parties, with him and Miss Lippy making out and kind of doing drugs together and things like that. Miss Lippy's a trip, right?
Yeah, and was Norm Macdonald involved behind the scenes, or did he just kind of come as an actor? But you have all these. You have him. You have Robert Smigel, who I'm a huge fan of, playing the biology teacher or chemistry teacher.
Do you guys know who Robert Smigel is? He's a Triumph. Okay, just making
he's
sure.
He's like the only comedian I sort of accost when I encounter him in person. People have to hold me back because I'm such a fan, and
yeah, and he
"Who's
never
this
had
guy
a real
gonna-"
career in front of the camera. Yeah. He's like a real behind the camera
guy,
but chlorophyll, borophyll is a pretty good line.
Yeah, and but you told me when you were looking at dailies, Sandler would be sitting in the front row with Zach, your son, and they were on the same wavelength?
Adam really, in those days, he was a 9-year-old to 10-year-old boy. I mean, the way he treated everyone, he was just he was a child. Yeah. I don't know how else to put it other than he was a child. And we talked about this, is that when Tamara came on, a lot of like the nudie magazine scene and a lot of the stuff with Teresa Merritt, who was, she's sort of a big star in her own right. She was in The Wiz, and she won a Tony, I guess, on Broadway. But I showed her the first cut, because I kind of went off and did the first cut on my own. And she, before we showed it to Adam, she wanted me to take out all the scenes that were questionable in terms of, certainly today they'd be very questionable. But I agreed to do that, but I saved the cut of the movie with everything in it, which I highly recommend people do, because when Adam saw her version, he freaked out, and a lot of, Tamara kind of blamed it on me not being a good comedy editor, and she wanted to bring in some, big Hollywood guy, and the producer said, no, the two of you have to work together, so we ended up, doing it.
This is every editor's nightmare scene, which happens quite often. I'm breaking out in hives just hearing about it. But it seems like the producer had the sort of vision to know you were the right guy, she was the right gal, the two of you could work it out, and it ended up working out? Or was it difficult all the way through?
I would say, she was a bit of a nervous Nellie, but it worked out. And Adam was very involved. He actually had one of his people kind of in the room all the time to sort of, like, if she made a weird decision, he would take her outside and debate with her for a while.
I mean, weird decision being a relative.
Well, I mean, it's a silly movie.
A lot of weird decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, when is it too much is really what the humor's like. But, as an editor, I think, a big part of our job is to embrace, if you're there, you might as well embrace it or leave, So you have to learn what's expected of you, and what, not just expected of you, but what the film is. And, I think I took on a John Waters movie, and I had seen the movie he had done before, and I said, there's no pace to it, it doesn't have any style. And so when I cut the next movie, Cecil B. Demented, I added all this pace to it and all that, and at the end, it was a John Waters movie. And so it didn't really matter what style I chose to do it in.
I will say, I think Billy Madison's really elegantly shot and really elegantly edited. There's like, I'm watching again with the reaction shots, and they always just seem like just the right amount of time. There's like when he's doing the little spelling bee, the girl gives him a look, and it's like the perfect.
I felt really good about it tonight when I looked at it. Usually when all of us, I think, look at things that we edit, we go back and go, why did I do that? Or, I would move this over here. But for what it is, I think it's solid, And remember, they had this really fancy DP, Andrei Barkowiak, who had done Pritzi's Honor and all these other really big films. And he was replaced by a guy who basically made everything F-16 and put on 3 cameras and shot the hell out of it. But sometimes for a comedy, that's a good thing, because, there's a lot of improvisation and things like that went on.
So what was your first preview like when you?
Right, so the producer was nervous. I mean, he had done the movie Airheads, but he was nervous about how it would be received. So he snuck the film, all of us, the editing room, out of town to Phoenix, Arizona, never told the studio, set up a screening there, and it scored like a 98. The kids,
which is insane.
Kids went, yeah, that's very high for for a comedy, and kids weren't crazy for it. So that kind of changed things. And at one point, I even had to go in and talk to Bud Smith, who is like the head editor at Universal. He was a very famous editor, and the idea he was supposed to tutor me in something as well, and he basically said, just keep doing what you're doing. So.
Yeah. Well,
the Hollywood, being on a studio, I don't know how many times you've done that in all those films that you've worked on, but being on a studio lot is a very different experience than working on independent films here or even studio films here. There's a whole nother kind of vibe to that.
Yeah, the advantage I found is at Universal there was like a hole in the fence that you could sneak into the theme park. So I'd go for a lunch break and ride the Mummy ride and come back like.
Not only there, you could take a golf cart to the hole.
Yeah, that's the perk. That's the only perk really of working out there. But when you were working on it, did it cross your mind that this would become a generational touchstone? That Sandler would in the future become the highest paid actor in the world and be voted Vogue's fashion icon of the year of 2021.
In fact, when Michael Taylor, is he here? When he wrote the first sort of introduction to the movie, he wrote about it as if it had just come out, and when it just came out, Siskel and Ebert said that Adam was mentally ill, and basically, and it got trashed, and so it was as again my son, I think his high school yearbook, all under his picture were all like Billy Madison quotes. So I started to see like all the influence that the movie had on people, and it's kind of amazing that certain of those phrases have become part of the vernacular. And
yeah, it's remarkable to me. I mean, poll the audience, like how many of you first saw the movie on VHS at your friend Dylan's basement? Oh my God, it's like everyone. 100 is like 98%. Yeah.
Here's a friend of mine in the audience. Do you want to read it yourself, Mim, or should I paraphrase it?
Monday, February 27th, 1995. Yesterday, I went to the movies. I saw Billy Madison. It is a really stupid movie. It is the best movie on the whole planet. And I drew a big happy face. And then the teacher wrote, how can it be the best if it's stupid? And I wrote, I enjoyed it being stupid.
Wonderful dramatic. I find when I'm working on a comedy, it's so often that the director, producer, writer will be like, "It's so stupid," like as to ourselves, as a compliment to ourselves. That is so stupid.
Yeah.
Well, what?
No, I mean, comedy it's different. It's. Even a lot of the comedies that I've done have been not so much romantic comedies, but narrative films that have comedic bases to it, like even The Ref or ACOD or some of the other things like that. But what I tend to do, I think, is cut the dramatic part first and then go back and hone the comedy, because the comedy just takes so much more time.
Yeah, interesting. I think often to a similar thing. I usually have learned to come with the attitude like it's the story, it's the dramatic, it's the heart of the movie that matters. The comedy you can add anytime, you can figure it out.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about whether one big laugh is more important than 3 little snickers, and oftentimes the producers are looking for those 3 or 4 laughs that they can put in the trailer that will get people involved in that way. It's funny when you see a trailer and there's 4 laughs, you realize that those are the only 4 laughs in the movie.
Well,
but
as long as they paid the ticket, they're good.
Right, but it is nice. It's nice to kind of try to build a joke by sort of getting a little snicker in the beginning and then sort of getting somebody off guard for the punchline, basically.
Yeah, I think there's also a thing. I mean, just in thinking about how you're saying the original director his vision was too dark. The movie still, and people are lit on fire and all kinds of things happen. But I think that Sandler's putting the whole thing on. The unreality creates this level where it's sort of permissible and funnier, if that makes sense. Like the way the performance is so over the top just invites you to just enjoy it rather than going, well, would he really do that? Did you encounter that when you were cutting it?
Originally Lorne Michaels wanted them to just have him go to one grade. And they said, no, he has to progress. And I think that the comedy going from, I think there's a bit of nostalgia, like seeing yourself in first grade and then second grade and kind of embracing what his attitude is. And, I don't remember the question, but I do think that it built, and we all fell in love with our third grade teacher ultimately, so I think that was
it's a
build.
Total wish fulfillment. The third grade teacher, but especially the dodgeball, because and I actually also think it's just thinking about how millennials love the movie. I think it's like a letter from Gen X to millennials. Like, this is what it was like. Like, getting pegged in the head with a dodgeball was how we were raised.
Which, by the way, Adam got permission from the parents to damage the kids.
Yeah.
But again, I was looking at some outtakes today, and there's one scene instead of her doing that dance, Miss Lippy, she's got a stethoscope on and a baby doll in a crib. And she's sort of like in there when Billy walks in and catches her doing it. There's a whole scene, a kickball scene, with all the staff from the house that's absolutely, it got completely cut out because it was just too out there.
Yeah, it's a really lean movie. It's 88 minutes or something, which I love. And was that by design? Was that just you're just working on it and just felt like it was right and not overstaying its welcome?
Yeah, I think again, you look at this. Everything's a little different now again because of Netflix and things like that, because they want things to be longer. But a comedy was between 85 and 95 minutes. If you you knew going in that you had to come in around 90 with credits.
Yeah.
So
those were the days.
Yeah, and I think it was also the turning over in the theater and all the whatever reasons people have for all this. But what I was going to say before is the music, which I forgot how much music there was in it. But Adam was like he grew up in New Hampshire and he was a huge Boston fan, the band, and so that 90s rock and roll was like right in his wheelhouse, and he wanted that a lot. Sticks
Stroke Me is perfect for the ending, but also the opening cue is perfect. And I was going to ask you about that like pompous, slightly classical music, which is kind of a move like Animal House did, and Trading Places, which has a bit like this. And by the way, I feel like Billy Madison walked so Secession could run. I mean, Secession's just a sequel to Billy Madison, but that setting the tone with that classical music and him in the pool, and it was a really elegant feel, and actually makes the stupid stuff feel that much funnier. Was that by design or?
Yeah, but also remember Randy Edelman did Beethoven. So I mean, there isn't that much difference.
Wait, Beethoven, the dog movie, or the
the dog movie.
Immortal Beloved, the Beethoven movie?
But I haven't seen that movie in a long time. But if you think about it, it's a certain kind of humor that was happening during that time period.
Yeah, And it just sets up this world of wealth, and
Yes.
just kind of speaks
Well,
to
that's
that.
also true.
Yeah.
That's quite a location. Evidently, was it Secession? There was some big movie they used that house as a set for. I can't remember what it was, but it's in Toronto. Anyway.
I think it might have been the X-Men's house.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was the
There
X-Men's
you
house.
go. Again, another franchise that owes its owes a lot to you and Billy Madison.
And Bridget Wilson didn't really act that much anymore. She married Pete Sampras and kind of went off on her merry way. I think everyone on the crew tried to hit on her at one point or other. Bob, whatever. But
she has like, I'm looking at, well, first of all, the hair. The hair is incredible.
Yes.
The bangs are incredible. But she also, like, her line readings are so flirtatious, even when she's like teaching the kids. So like it actually, I think it rewired a whole generation of young men's minds, this movie of just her.
But how about Adam and all the girls, women who he picked as co-stars? They never, until maybe recently, the first 5 to 10 films, he would pick women who were not paired up very well with him.
They all have initials VV.
Yes.
You know this? I don't know.
This is true.
This
Weird.
is really important stuff, guys.
Editing. Yeah, so what else can I tell you about that? Yes, I worked on a lot of films, and I was telling Rob that each one there's always like a story that goes with the film that you work on that has nothing to do with the actual editing of the film, but it always, it's such a funny job,
It's impossible to explain what we do, and so we end up telling stories about the production, which we weren't even there for, because I sat in a room for a year and put shots together, and now it's funny and you can laugh. Isn't this a great story?
When you mentioned Ted, the great thing about working with Ted Demme was that I got to repeat with him many times, and so it became a bit of a shorthand. That was a whole nother way of working, where you're kind of in tune with someone and can kind of know what they're thinking and doing. And we've talked about that you've repeated with some directors as well. And then also the kind of how comedy has changed. You can't cut the same way that this is cut now, either for humor.
Yeah, and so how has this, well, first of all, actually, I think we didn't mention, are there any bits that you found in the edit room that you can remember when you were putting this film together, or like, what was the scene that kept coming in and going out, or for example, the write-up for tonight, I don't know who writes for the Metrograph, but it's terrific, and it says that the academic decathlon sequence should be studied like Eisenstein's Odessa steps from Potemkin, so was that a sequence that you worked on a lot, or did it come together quickly?
Yeah, what's interesting is that I thought the movie was a lot long. I thought it was going to be a lot longer than it actually is, because there's a lot of scenes that I remember being in, and I don't exactly remember why they came out, but I do know there's a lot more Teresa Merritt. There's a lot more Josh Mostel, who's Zero Mostel's son. I don't know if you guys know who Zero Mostel was, but
That's the principal. Teresa Merritt was Juanita the maid, who, as you mentioned, is a Tony winner for August Wilson play for Ma Rainey.
Yeah, and the Steve Buscemi part. How many times have you made a list like that of people you wanted to kill in high school? Yeah, so how do you feel about what makes somebody able to edit comedy different than somebody able to edit narrative drama?
Oh, I don't know. I guess it's, I once taught a class, and the gist of it was how to cut comedy versus drama, and it basically came down to if it makes you laugh, put it in. If it's a comedy, and I remember a guy came up to me after and was like, "Great, thanks. You know, put the funny stuff in." That's great advice. It's basically all about, you know.
No, it's that William Goldman line. You know, make it 10% funnier is often a note you would get. Like, you know, nobody knows how to make things funny.
It's actually a great note. I had Judd Apatow give us that note on a film. He just came in and he watched it, and he's like, yeah, it's great. Just make it 10% fun. That scene, make it 10% funnier. And he walked away, and, you know, and I was like, actually, that's a really good note. We'll just, you know, because most notes are just work on it more. So,
and
you know.
It's not you're mining. You know, I mean, it's sort of like sometimes you'll add a line. Even in this, which was early for me, I think there's a lot of off-camera stuff, like when Josh is off-camera, the Principal Anderson in his wrestling gear. I'm sure I added all those lines in, and they were never there before, you know, and that kind of stuff.
I should mention that your son, Zach, who I've worked with a lot, told me that he joined SAG and is the voice of the kid getting sprayed on with the hose, and that he still receives royalty checks for it.
He does.
Which, as an editor, makes me think, what are royalty checks? We don't get them.
Hey, mister, you're hurting me.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that started when he was young, and we had loop groups that you could get people into, and that was always fun. On A Dirty Shame, I think it was, Zach came in and did a line, and he got a residual check for a penny. And so I said, you should send that to John. And he did. I gave him his address, and he sent it to John. And John sent it back signed, saying, you made more money on this movie than I did.
Perfect.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.